This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Bob Chapman, friend from way back, who is President Emeritus of Middlesex Community College. He was president from 1976 to 1989 when he retired. He's back in town to receive the college's second honorary degree. So you must remember Middletown. Well, obviously you remember Middletown as it was in the late 70s and early 80s. Have you been around enough to see any changes? Or?
We came in last night and went out to supper in downtown, and downtown Main Street, I thought, looked 100% better than I remembered it. It really
There are
was a pleasure.
39 restaurants downtown.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And it's certainly not all students that are keeping them in business.
No. These restaurant people come from all over.
Yeah.
You probably remember Larry McHugh,
Oh, yes.
who is still president of the Chamber.
Is
He's wonderful. I had lunch with him yesterday, and he sends his regards.
Mm-hmm.
And he is very proud of the 39 restaurants,
Yeah.
just in downtown.
Right.
Just in downtown. Every ethnicity you could ever dream of. Now, when you were president, was it on the site we're on right now?
Yes. Yeah, they had moved from Middletown High and from the mental hospital up on the hill, which is where the college started.
Right.
And they had been in the buildings here probably 3 or 4 years when I came. So, yes, I had the pleasure of being here all the time, not in permanent facilities.
So our listeners should know we're taping this show on the campus of Middlesex Community College, and I've been so impressed with the site. The site is wonderful. The view over the Connecticut River, and beyond the college, the reservoir and the woods. And I assume you used to walk around there a lot.
Is the nature trail still in the woods or not?
Well, it needs a little.
It needs some work.
It needs some work. It needs some work. Yes. As we both know, the new president has been hired, Anna Wisesha, and we'll give her that as her first job, shall we? This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and this is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, interim president of Middlesex Community College, and my guest today is Bob Chapman, second president of Middlesex Community College, retired in 1989, and back in town today to receive an honorary degree. When you first came here in 1976, well, in your judgment, what was the main challenge?
Oh, I guess the main one was getting the faculty and staff to believe that they were really here and they weren't back on the mental hospital campus or in downtown.
That they now had a real
campus, and it was kind of time to get into that mode and think in that mode. Also, establishing friendly relations with the community. The community was still getting to know us. And you've mentioned Larry McHugh. It was great when Larry came in as chairman of the chamber. He was a real go-getter, and it was nice to have
He still is. Yeah.
And so we began expanding the programs into Meriden, into Old Saybrook. Those were the two major ones. Expanding some of our academic programs.
I think you'd be very pleased at our activity in Meriden. The town is very, very supportive. Very supportive. We have a center over there.
Right. I saw the sign we came through Meriden yesterday, saw the sign to the Middlesex Community College Center. I didn't get to see it.
About 600 students. It's right in the center, and the mayor is very supportive, the superintendent of schools, the chamber. You may remember, actually, the guy who's now head of the chamber, Sean Moore, was a student here.
Oh,
I think in your time.
Yeah.
he was on the search committee for the new president. Old Saybrook, we haven't been as active as we should have. Another challenge for the new president. How many? Do you remember how many students there were here when you first came?
No.
I won't hold you to it. That's fine. That's fine.
And if I quoted, I'm not sure I'd be correct.
We now have a sheet, which I do not have in front of me, of fast facts, all the facts about the college that you would ever want to know. And it's helped me 1,000 times because I don't have to memorize things that really any president should know. Do you remember how many faculty and staff there were? Probably more now than there were then.
How many are there now?
Well, if you count everybody, it's just about 100.
I think that's about where we were. The time I was here. I think the student body was similar to what it is now. Your full-time enrollment is?
It's about 3,000, somewhere around there. It strikes me as young compared to what I'm used to, but a lot of people from different areas come in. It's not just students from Middletown, and I assume that the number of programs is greater than it was in your time. Yeah. But you started the ophthalmic
design and dispensing.
Yes, and I've had to learn how to say ophthalmic without stumbling. It's very successful, and that's still a unique program in the state.
Yeah. You mentioned the seems though the students are younger, and I'm not surprised by that, but we always had a large number of middle-aged women from 35 to 50 who the faculty just loved because they would come here, they were afraid, they weren't sure they should be going to college, and then they'd just catch fire, and they were delightful.
We certainly have some of them. But as you know, I was president at Manchester for many years before doing a year here. Percentage-wise, there are less. The oldest student graduating this year is about 60, I'm told.
Oh, wow.
Which is, well, yes, but I'm used to one or two being in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we always had a couple that had taken 6 or 7 years, and they were in their 80s, and we do have a mother and son graduating. You'll recognize the pattern of community colleges. Oh, sure.
Now you're living in Pennsylvania now.
Correct. Just outside of State College, where Penn State is.
Do you have any connection with community colleges down there? Or?
No, in fact, is not a community college. I think the closest one to us is probably 2 hours away. Pennsylvania has a very different system than Connecticut or New York. The Penn State University has 2-year branches.
Oh, I see.
And they kind of fought the coming of community colleges for a while. And so in our particular region, there are no community colleges.
So what do they do for workforce development and all
there
of that?
are some technical, there's still some technical schools around.
Okay.
And they are performing the same function that the technical schools were here in Connecticut before the technical schools and the community college joined.
Yeah, they were merged. There were 5 technical colleges and 12 community colleges. They were merged.
Right.
The merger was somewhat of a bureaucratic nightmare, but it did happen.
And I think it was the right thing to happen, frankly.
Yeah, I do too, because what ended up was genuinely comprehensive community colleges.
Right.
But I've got to ask you, Bob, about life after retirement. Obviously, I'm more and more interested in that as the days wind down. You and your late wife, I remember, bought an RV. Tell us about that. That was wonderful.
Well, we had always wanted to travel, and I think the year before I retired, we bought what's called a fifth wheel. It's a 35-foot trailer that you pull with a pickup truck.
Wow.
We stayed around, I think, about 2 months after retirement, and then headed to Florida We made a beeline as far as Georgia and finally said, why are we hurrying? We've got the rest of our life to enjoy this.
Yeah.
And we talked to this wonderful lady in a visitor center in Georgia. So we spent the next month getting through Georgia on our way to Florida. And from then on, for 6 years, we traveled full time in that RV and did all of the states of the United States, most of northern Mexico, all of the Canadian provinces, Northwest Territories.
You sold your house, didn't you?
No.
Oh, you kept
we
kept
weren't
the house.
quite that brave.
Okay.
We had a cottage over in Colchester. Kept that.
You traveled for 6 years in an RV. Now, both of us, you were married for how long till your wife died? I mean, a long time.
We celebrated our 53rd anniversary.
Wow. Okay, so you were married 53 years. I've been married 47. And I'm sure some of our listeners would be interested. And you're in a relatively confined space, of course, sharing this space. How does that... It scares me a little bit, and I admire you for pulling it off.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, we agreed that we'd do it for at least a year when we bought the RV.
Yeah.
And we wound up doing full-time 6 years, and we traveled all together about 12 years in it.
Wow.
The last 6 or 7 were, we would spend the winter in Arizona and be back here. What's the difference of whether you're in a small apartment? We had always done things together. We enjoyed being together, and worked out very well. You stopped, you did a lot of sightseeing. I mean, we were in different places most of the time. Stop, spend 4 or 5 days, see the area, move 100, 150 miles, and do the next area.
How does it work? How do friendships work? I mean, most of us, we live in a certain place. We have friends in that area. We stay in touch by being in each other's homes or
Right.
calling each other.
Yeah.
Did you find you were on the phone a lot to friends, or how did that work?
This was before we had computers and email and so forth.
Exactly.
When we first retired. I can remember stopping at shopping centers trying to find where there was a payphone because you also didn't have cell phones. It was difficult, mostly by letters. And the communication to us was through my daughter, who handled our finances, had access to our checkbook and so forth, handled our mail, forwarded. She always knew where we were. But it was difficult during that first period of time.
It's interesting. And were people annoyed in a way that they couldn't find you, or did they just say, he's eccentric and that's it?
If they were, they never expressed it to us.
Yeah.
So.
And you have four daughters, right?
Yes.
Living in different parts of the U.S., I assume.
Mm-hmm.
So would you sometimes travel and find your way to where they were?
Yeah. We have one daughter that's been in Spain for 25 years. She married a Spaniard. One in Newport, Rhode Island, which is a great place to be in the summertime.
Of course.
One in Austin, Texas, which is fine to be in the wintertime. And one in central Pennsylvania. That's why we wound up in central Pennsylvania.
She's the one with the checkbook.
She was the one with the checkbook.
I hear you. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, and we'll be back momentarily. This is Middlesex Moments. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. And my guest today is Robert Chapman, Bob Chapman, second president of Middlesex Community College from 1976 to 1989. And he's back in town to receive an honorary degree from the college. And we've been talking about how he and his late wife traveled in an RV around the 50 states of the United States and all the Canadian provinces and the Northwest Territories. Mm-hmm. Wow. For 6 years in an RV. And what that's really like. It is a very different lifestyle than living in one place and having your predictable, neighbors and so on. What does one do about, say, medical emergencies? You just go to the local hospital and hope that somebody will be nice to you?
Thank goodness we were both in good health at the time.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't a major concern, and we never experienced it. So, but yes, if anything had happened, we would have used local emergency room facilities.
Sure. So back to Middlesex Community College. You were the second president, following a founding president. What was that like? I assume that when you walked in the door, the college was very much identified with the first president.
Certainly.
I mean, that founding presidents are very different from the rest of us.
Yeah. Phil Wheaton was still living in the area. He was a great help when I came to the college, introducing me the best he could to the institution, the community, what was going on at the college, what needed to go on. And then, he stepped back. He was never interfered in any way. It was never a problem. He would come on campus and join us from time to time for festivities and so forth. And we were able to name one of the buildings in his honor. His wife also was active in the community and in the college after Phil's death. So it couldn't have been nicer nor easier than having someone like Phil Wheaton as the founding president coming in after him, although he was greatly loved at this institution.
Now you came from a deanship, as I remember, in New York.
Correct.
Do you remember what your biggest surprise was coming into the presidency?
Yes.
Are you willing to talk about it?
Part of it was the centralization of the system in Connecticut, which was not true in New York State.
Yeah, we have 12 community colleges, all part of one system.
Right. And I guess the other big difference was in the amount of budget that was available and the flexibility that you had in the budget. I remember saying...
You're visiting at a bad time,
I know,
but keep talking.
I remember saying on a couple of occasions, I had more discretionary money to work with as a dean of faculty than I did as a president. And that was kind of a shock, getting used to that and learning how to manage it and to free up funds to do things that I felt were necessary to do. But so much of the funding were to carry on the everyday things that had to go on.
Do you have a perspective on why Connecticut is so controlling? I mean, this is a constant theme, and believe me, it hasn't really gotten much better. Now it's perhaps getting worse, who knows. Do you have a sense of why it's so deep in the culture in Connecticut?
Not really. All the time, I'm sure, as I think I just heard you saying, it's still a question of why it's the case. No, and I'm not sure why that is. I guess, when I got here, I figured that's the way it is in Connecticut and just had to learn to manage under that kind of system.
What was your relationship, or the college's relationship, with Wesleyan University at the time? We're talking the late 70s and 80s.
I'm going to forget the name of the president.
Was it Colin Campbell?
Yes, it was. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very close, friendly relationship. He was very willing to help in any way that he could. Had a nice relationship in terms of students transferring to Wesleyan. We were sending, I think, probably roughly 6-8 students a year to Wesleyan.
Wow.
Which was
it's less now,
great.
But it's going up again because thanks to President Roth and others, there's a real interest.
Good.
In connecting again.
There were several faculty that worked with students, and if they wrote a recommendation for that student to go to Wesleyan, almost invariably they get in. And that was nice for the faculty to know and for the students to realize that.
And people who are listening to us should know that one route to a very selective, very fine institution is, of course, to go to a community college for a couple of years, get the good grades and all of that, and then move on. We also have several faculty and professional staff, both, who are Wesleyan graduates.
Mm-hmm.
So the connections just need to be
Right.
revived a little bit. What did you think when you came here? What did you think of the location of the college? On the one hand, it's such a wonderful site. It's beautiful. Harvard and Yale would love to have it, I'm sure. On the other hand, it's a little far from
Downtown.
from the crowds.
Yeah, it was. People always raise the issue, why are you up there on the hill rather than down in the middle of town? And certainly the students that were here loved the site.
Yes. Yes.
The faculty and staff loved the site. I don't think it was a major problem. It was a major problem, I guess, primarily for the poorest students in downtown Middletown.
Because of transportation.
Because of transportation.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was
Still an issue.
Still unfortunate part.
Of course, it's still incredibly.
Yeah.
I mean, transportation is expensive.
Right.
There's no way about it. And you know, as the crow flies, the Meriden Center is 6 miles or 12. I mean, don't quote me,
Right.
but not very far from here. But on the actual roads, it takes 25 minutes, half an hour to go back and forth.
Yeah.
So now you retired in 1989. And we won't even do the math. That's a fair number of years ago.
Yes.
As you remember it now, what was your major achievement here? What do you think your major? The word they use today is legacy. What's the legacy? Would you say?
The ophthalmic design and dispensing program, certainly,
Yeah.
as far as programs were concerned. I think the college was in pretty decent shape in terms of faculty administrative relationships. I always felt that we had a nice, close working relationship. And getting the library moved into a new building.
Which carries your name.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's not be humble about that. No, I had nothing to do with it, but it does. Chapman Hall.
It's a beautiful building, and it freed up some space in this building because the library was here in the administration.
We're taping
building.
this in Founders Hall.
Right. And by moving it, it gave us a lot of flexibility in terms of moving the offices here. Gave the students a nice lounge.
Yes. And there's a gathering space on the top floor that community groups use a lot.
Yeah. And up until that time, we just had no space for any kind of community groups whatsoever.
Right. And now, of course, in 2011, people are talking, and rightly so, about the need for a new building.
Mm-hmm.
So you give me hope because you retired and then you really did do some wonderful things. I mean, this traveling, have you ever written about it? This traveling through 50 states, not even, Hawaii as well? You traveled, but not with the RV, I
No.
Have you ever been to Hawaii?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
so you've been to
We've
the 50
been to
states.
all of them, yeah.
And all the Canadian provinces and the Northwest Territories. When you went to Spain to visit your daughter, did you drive around there too?
Mm-hmm.
With an RV?
No.
Oh, okay.
We've driven an RV in the Scandinavian countries, South Africa, Mozambique.
Wow.
So,
we've got to get you back to talk about South Africa. But time flies.
Yes.
This has been Middlesex Moments, and my guest has been Robert Chapman, second President Emeritus of Middlesex Community College, who's back in Middletown to receive an honorary degree. Take a look at our website, mxcc.comnet with two M's, comnet.edu. I'm Jonathan Daube, Interim President of Middlesex Community College. Have a good day.